All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome everyone. My name is Tracy Fitzpatrick and I'll be your moderator today. Thank you so much for joining us here at Netcom Learning, a market leader in promoting lifelong learning, training, and talent development solutions. We are very excited to host today's technical webinar. Put your best foot forward by exploring CSS to create innovative websites. Presenting today's topic is Meg Reddy. Mr. Reddy has nearly 9 years of IT industry experience. He has worked for companies like Accenture, Deloitte, Cognizant, and Infosys. He is currently working as the project lead at the product-based company and has received numerous awards from Accenture, including an ACE Award. Now please bear in mind that this is an overview of a very robust topic. We offer a collection of technical and business courses that can be tailored towards your specific requirements. If you are interested in a further discussion, you can make an appointment with our learning consultants through our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session is also being recorded, so you'll get free access to the recording in the next 24 hours via email. Now I'll just give you a quick overview of the logistics before we get started. To start with, you have the option to adjust the window size to your liking. Simply hit the Escape key and find the Zoom button on the top left corner of your GoToWebinar viewer. Everyone has been muted except for our presenters. Please feel free to submit any questions you have for the presenters here in the question pane, and we will address them at the end of the session. A PDF copy of today's slides are also in the handout section of your GoToWebinar viewer. And now I'll pass this over to Meg to present today's topic.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Tracy.
Meg?
Yeah, you're able to see my screen? Hello?
You are on. You are live.
Okay, thank you. Hi everyone, good afternoon. So today we are going to discuss on CSS, cascading style sheets, and we're going to discuss from the basics, and let's see how cascading style sheets help to create very good very good design websites. So let's get started. Let's say this. So if you want to create a very good website, you should know HTML controls, and also the presentation should be very good, and the website should have very good user interaction, right? So for controls, we will be learning HTML is useful for controls, and for presentation, CSS is very much required, and for user interaction, we need to learn JavaScript. So last week, I took a webinar on JavaScript, and today we are going to learn on CSS and how CSS will help for making very good presentation, for making very good websites, right? So let's get started with today's topic and CSS cascading style sheets. Now, so what I'll do now is I'm going to create a folder in my desktop, and I'm going to name it as CSS webinar. I just created a folder in my desktop, CSS webinar, and in this folder I'm going to create a file. It's a new text document, and I'm going to give page1.html. Okay, so I just created a folder in my desktop, and I gave the folder name as CSS webinar, and inside that I created a folder page1.html. Now in this, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have a Visual Studio. So this is the editor that I'm going to use today. So Visual Studio is from Microsoft, and this is a free Visual Studio Community Edition, which is free for individuals. So you can download this from Microsoft website, and this is a very good tool for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, also for .NET web development, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drag and drop this on Visual Studio. So not only Visual Studio, you can use Notepad++ as editor, or Notepad as editor. The reason why I'm using Visual Studio is it supports IntelliSense, right? So what does it mean by IntelliSense is? So if I'm typing here HTML, see this? You can see that this editor is suggesting me with HTML. So that's the reason why I'm using today this Visual Studio editor. And now I'm going to write a simple HTML file. So HTML normally will have head section, and it will also have body section. Now I'm going to create a simple resume in HTML format, and let's say this. I need in body section, I'm going to write h1 tag for, and I'm going to write resume. And then below this, I'm going to put H2. So normally this is subheading. This is a superheading, and this is subheading. And in this, so normally if you take resume, so normally if you have, we will have these things in our resume, like objective and key skills, and we will have like projects worked on or project details, and we will also have like work experience. And last but not, we will also have personal details like address, etc. So normally a resume will have these details. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a page with these headings. So this first heading is resume, and I'm going to create objective as one heading. So I'm going to put here objective, and I need some paragraphs. So I need some text in this objective. So what I'm going to do now is in Microsoft Word, there is the way using which you can generate some dummy text. So I just open Microsoft Word document, and I'm going to type is equal to LOREM, lorem, and I'm going to type 5, 4. So this will generate 5 paragraphs. So this will generate five paragraphs, which each paragraph having 4 sentences. So now I'm going to use this because I need some dummy text for just explaining the concepts. So in objective, I'm going to put paragraph tag, and I'm going to paste it. Okay, done. So now I added 1 paragraph. So let me add one more heading for, let's say this. So what is the second one we thought of having as key skills or project details? So I'm going to put one more H2, and I'm going to put project details. For now, I'm adding just a dummy text. So in reality, we'll have some proper data. Now I'm going to Word document and copy this, and I'm going to do Ctrl+X and paste it here. So this is 2 paragraphs, and let me add the last one, H2 tag, and let me have work experience. Now I'm going to add one more paragraph, and I need some dummy text here. So let me copy this, and I'm going to do Ctrl+X, I cut, and I paste it here. So now let's see how this looks like in the browser. So I just created a sample HTML document. HTML will normally have head section and body section, and I have this H1 tag followed by this 3 H2, and let's see how it looks like in the browser. Right click on this, view in browser, and let's see how it looks like in the browser. Now everyone see this, I'm able to see this in the browser like this. So what your browser will do is, the browser will convert this H1 to a big heading, and this is H2, the little bit smaller one, and all these are H2, and this is paragraphs. Now this is called your controls, your code. So this we can do it using HTML. So we just used plain HTML, and this your browser is converting into like this. Now where CSS is used is, let's take you want to do some styling. So let's take all your headings you want to put in background color, you want to add a gray color and make the font as brown color. So what you can do here is, so in this you can add inline styling. So I'm going to add an attribute called style, and I'm going to write background color. See this? Background color. Sorry, let me type it once again. Background color, and I'm going to put gray, and then I'm going to put color. This is for font color. I'm going to put brown. Now let's see, I want to do this for all these H2s. So I'm going to copy this. So I need this same format for all the other H2 tags as well. So let's take my client is saying like that. So now let's say this, I saved it, and now let me refresh it. Now see this, you can see that, okay, this is not, so I'll make it to black itself. Now let's say this. So I'm going to change it. So this way of adding style sheet is called inline styling. So let's save it, and let's see how it looks like. So normally you might have seen in websites, in internet, a lot of websites you will see like this. So where your heading will have a background color and header will have. So this way of changing the presentation can be done using CSS. So CSS is normally used for presentation. CSS stands for cascading style sheets, and whatever I have done now using the style attribute wherever I need it, so that way of doing is called cascading style sheets, right? Now what I'm going to do is, let's assume that I have 2 pages. Okay, so this is resume 1, and I'm going to I saved it. Now let me copy this. I'm going to copy this, and let's create one more in my desktop. I'm going to create one more folder, one more HTML page in my desktop. So I'm going to create new text document, and I'm going to create page2.html. Okay, now let's see, this is one more. So I'm going to open this in Visual Studio once again. So now let's see this. So I'm going to drag this, because normally websites will have multiple pages. So let's assume this is the second page of our website, and this is, I'm going to put resume 2. Just as an example, I'm taking here as resume, but in real world you will have some other content as well, right? Now let's see how your resume 2 looks like. So this is page 2. Now I'll go to the browser, and I'm going to copy this page 1, and in new tab I'm going to paste it page 2, and let me change the URL to page 2. Okay, now see this, my website, let's assume this is a website with 2 resumes, resume 1 and resume 2. Now if my client says, so let's assume that this is the website that you've done for your client. Now if your client says that I want to change this background color of all these headings to light gray. So imagine he's not happy with the gray color, he wants to change it to light gray. So what you have to do now is you have to go for each and every style tag, and you have to modify this problem. So imagine you have, your website is having around 10 pages. So if your website is having 10 pages, you have to go for each and every page, and you have to change the style in the respective pages. So now what I have to do now is I have to go to each and every tag in the respective page, and I have to change it to light gray. See this now? I have to change it literally in every tag. I have to do this, light gray. Okay, so now I have to copy this, and this is very manual process, so I'm going to change it like this. So now I saved it in the first page. Now I have to go to second page, and I have to change it here as well. So now I have to change this. Now let's say this. Now you can see here, this is changed to light gray. Now second page also changed to light gray. I refreshed it. So now let's try to see, let's take for example, let's go to MS Paint, and let's try to do some maths. So imagine your website is having, let's say this, imagine your website is having 10 pages, and each page is having 5 H2 tags. Now using inline styling, if you want to make any change for all the H2s, you have to make change in 50 places, 5 into 10, which is in 50 places. So every time if your customer says that he needs some change, making changes in all 50 places is a big problem, right? So inline styling is good, but if you want to do it in only 1 or 2 places, inline styling is good. So we need to find an alternative for this, because changing every time or changing this will be a tedious process. So now we will see what is the other process. Now let's come back to the slides now. So with this knowledge, let's come back to the presentation. And now let's say this. So let's say this, for structure and controls, we need to learn HTML, presentation CSS, user interaction, and current topic is CSS. Now let's say this. So we already learned about inline styling. The second styling which we are going to learn now is called internal styling. So internal styling, what we do is, we don't do it for every tag. So what we do is, so we'll put the tag name here in the head section. In the head section, we'll put style tag, and inside it we'll put the element, and we'll add this. So this will apply to all the elements of the page. Now let's see how we can do it. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put in head section, I'm going to add a style tag. And in this, I'm going to put H2, and I'm going to put like this. Now I don't want to do like this. Let me remove this. And I'm going to remove this. Now I'm going to remove this. Now say this, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put this in here. Now let's say this. Now I added style, so I don't need the style attribute. So now I added like this. Now this way of writing in head section style tag is called internal styling. Now the good thing about internal styling is whatever you write in the head section inside style tag, this applies for all H2 tags in this page. So now you don't have to write individually. So now this applies to all this. Now let's see how it looks like. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to say it in the browser. So let's see how it looks like in the browser. Say this. Now if I want to change this, I don't have to change it in all the three places. Now I can simply change it. Now let's take, I want to change the font color to orange. Now I can simply change it here. Now that applies to all three headings. See now? Okay, that's not looking good, but still. Now let's say this, I'm going to change it to blue. Now let's say this. So the good thing about this internal style sheet is that you just need to change it one place for the complete web page, right? So now let's go back and do some maths now. So if you see here, using inline styling, you have to make, in each tag, you have to make changes. So 5 H2 tags and total 10 pages. Now let's see how many times we'll get it using internal styling. So using internal styling, you're just making one change in your head section for all the H2 tags. So it is one time per page. So how many times you're doing is 10 times. So you're doing 10 times, 10 places you have to change. Now imagine your customer asks to change the color. In one page you will change it once, and page 2 you'll go to page 2, and here also we're going to remove this. So we don't need this now. So I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to delete this in page 2 as well. So I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to delete in page 2 this as well. Now let's say this. Now here also I'm going to add a style tag, and this way of writing is called internal styling. Now what I'll do is I'll copy this. Now give it. Now let's go back to the Google Chrome browser, and now let's say, so in my page 1, so let me close this. In page 1 I'm saying this, and in page 2 I'm saying this. So this looking. Now if my customer says I just need to change, if customer says to change this color, I can change only in 2 places, that is in the heading. Okay, now let's go back to the presentation and let's see the third one. So this is good, but the problem is in every web page you have to do it. In every page we have to do it one time, right? So now what we'll do is the third one which you have is called external styling. So external styling is like, we will refer to an additional CSS file. In separate CSS file, we write this and we refer that CSS file in all the pages. So see this now, we refer this in all the pages. Now what we are going to do now is I'm going to add one CSS file, and now let's see this. So I'm going to go to the folder, same folder, and CSS webinar, and I'm going to add new text document, and I'm going to rename this to style sheet.css. So CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. Now I'm going to open the same again I'm going to open this in Visual Studio. So let me drag and drop this. As of now this is empty. Now what I'll do is I'm going to so what I'll do now is I'm going to change this. I'm going to copy this and paste it in the external style sheet. So this is how we put it in the style sheet. Now let's say this. This is how we put in the style sheet. Now what I'll do is I will refer in all the pages to the style sheet, external style sheet. So how to do that is I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to put link, and I'm going to put relation equal to style sheet, and then type is equal to text or CSS, and I'm going to put href is equal to style sheet.css. So this is how you have to refer a style sheet. Since both are present in the same folder, I'm just giving the file name. So since this is also present in the same folder as page2.html, I'm just giving the file name. Otherwise we have to give relative path. Now let's see this. I saved it. Now what I'll do is I'll go back to this. I'll do the same thing in page1.html. So let me remove this and paste it. Now I'll go, and this is how. Now let's save it. Now say this, the benefit of this is, let's go back to this one and let me refresh it. Now you can still see the same blue color in both resume 1 and resume 2. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it to light or yellow color. So let me change it to yellow. Now see this, I just changed in one place, external style sheet, and that applies to, see this, all 3 in page 1 and all 3 in page 2. So now complete website, both the pages are looking in yellow. And again, if I want to change it, I just change it to light. So light, let me change it to any other color, that doesn't matter. Now let's say this now, I just changed to some other color. Now you can see here, both the pages, it's looking same. So now let's go back and do some maths now. So if you are using external styling, so using external styling, you just need to change one place. So one place, right? So now there are three types of style sheets that in CSS. One is inline styling, where for each tag that you want to make change, you can do it. Internal styling within a web page, you can do it. External styling, which will apply for all the web pages in your website. So depending on the requirement, so you have to go for which styling you want, right? So now we just learned about three types of styling. Now, you might get a question now, what if I have external styling as well as I have inline style? Now, your inline style will have more precedence over external styling. What does it mean is, let's go back to Visual Studio once again, and now see this. My external style sheet is having color blue. Now, if I back and change this H2 to style color red. Now let's see what happens. Now, because you're exclusively telling that I need this first objective to be in red color, so now this will give more precedence over your, this will be given more precedence over your external style sheet, right? So let's see this in the browser. Right click on this, view in browser. Now see this, this is in red color because you're exclusively saying that you want this to be in red color, right? So now we just learned about three types of styling: inline styling, internal styling, and external styling. Now what we'll do is, let's go back to the presentation. Now, so now there are types of selectors. Now we learned already types of style sheets. Now we are going to learn types of selectors in CSS. So in CSS we have three types of selectors. So this is called element-based selector, and this is called ID-based selector. So I'll explain this. And this is called class-based selector. So this is called class-based selector. You can see here. So this is, button is an element in HTML, and this is ID. You can give ID for each element to differentiate it from other controls, and this is called class-based selector. So we'll see some examples now. So let's come back to this one. Now what we will do is, I'll go back to Visual Studio, and now I'm going to give here, now let's change it to here. In this style sheet, what I'm going to do now is, this one we already learned it. See now, all H2s will be changed to this color, right? Now sometimes you will get a requirement saying like, you will get a requirement in your resume saying like first two paragraph. So let's take initial two paragraph you want in one color, and or let's take last paragraph you specifically want in some color. So what you can do is, you can add an attribute. So space, you can add something like this. So I'm going to add here in style sheet, I'm going to put like this, dot last para or last heading. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to write here, so background color, colon. So now I'm going to copy this, let's not, so now say this. So I'm going to put it to, let's take background color, we need it to light gray. So all pages, last heading last heading you want it to be light gray color. Now what you can do is, so you can go to page 1, page 2, and this last heading you can put here class is equal to last heading. Like this you can do it. So I can go to page 1, and I can also do this here, class is equal to last heading. Now let's save it. Now let's see how it looks like. So I will see this in the browser. Let's go back and say this. Now let me refresh it. Now you can see here, this is the last heading. You want this in gray color, and let's go back to this one, and you can see here this heading is in gray color. So this is one type of selector. So basically, either you can give for all H2s you want to give one color. You can give element-based selector, or you can give class-based selector, or we have one more type of selector called ID-based selector. Now this is called, I'm going to give here H1 space. So I'm going to give class is equal to big heading. So some class name. So now what I'll do is, I'm going to create one more class. So this is for the first heading, resume, right? So I'm going to copy this and put it in page 1, and I'm going to put it here. So class. Now I'm going to add one more here in my, so this I'm going to copy this. Let's go back, and this is called, so big heading. And I'm going to put, let's add some color. Background color equal to, let's put here as light, any color, that doesn't matter, light green. Now let's save this, Now you can see this is in light green, and you can also see this is in light green color. So like this, there are three types of selectors. The first one, which applies for all the elements, is called element-based selector, and the second one we have, this is called class-based selector, and also we have one more called, if you want to give it only for a specific tag, then you can use something called ID-based selector. Let's take, for example, this last paragraph. I have an ID. So ID is equal to special. Okay, now let's say this. I just saved it. Now what I can do is, in this CSS file, I'm going to put this ID. That's only one special one, so I'm going to put special, and I'm going to write here. So I'm going to write color colon orange. Okay, so this way of giving is called, normally this we use it exclusively if you need only one or two tags. If you need it, we normally go for tag-based selector. If you need a group of specific location tags, you want some color, we'll go for class-based selector. And if you want all headings to be in some color, then we go for element-based selector. So depending on your requirement, you can select either to go for element-based selector or class-based selector or ID-based selector. Okay, now let's see how it looks like. So I save it. Now where is that I added special? So I added in page 1. So let's see this now. Let's go back and change it. Now this is page 2. Let's go back to page 1. Now you can see this, the last paragraph is looking in orange color. So that's a special based on ID. Everyone, so these are the three ways using which we can provide styling for respective controls. Now let's see in the presentation what is there in store for us. So this is called element-based selector, and this is called ID-based selector, and this is called class-based selector. Okay, so with this, let's move to the next slide. Now, sometimes you want to have all the controls in your page. You want to have specific color and specific. So now what you can do is, this star is called universal selector. So when you put star and when you put like this applies for all the controls. This style applies for all the controls in your web page. Right, so now let's say this. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove this. In page 1, I'm going to remove this external styling, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to delete all this. Let me remove this, and let me remove this, and let me remove this as well. And now I'm going to save it. Now what I'll do is I'm going to add this one. So universal selector. So how to do that is I'm going to put style and star. I'm going to put here star applies to all the controls, all the tags. So I'm going to put background color, background, or let's put simple color, color colon red. Now let's save it, and let's see the page how it looks like in the browser. Now see this, irrespective of H1, H2, see this, H1 is applied with blue color and H2 is applied with blue color and paragraph is applied with blue color. So this is a universal selector. This you have like this, that applies to all the headings, all the fonts, all the paragraphs that will be applied, right? So this is called universal selector, right? So let's go back to the paragraph now. Now let's go to the presentation. Now we have some more selectors called pseudo selectors. Pseudo means like we will not have a class like this. We will not have a class like this, but let's try to understand now. See this, I'm going to explain this. So now why this is called a pseudo class is because the meaning of pseudo is like imaginary, right? So if you see here, so now let's say this. We have a class called last heading. Because this is an actual class, we are writing this class. And big heading, there's a class, we're writing it, class-based selector. But pseudo selectors will not be there in CSS file, but still, so now let's see this. I mean, will not be there in your HTML file. So what does it mean is, let's take for example, I'm going to write here, I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to write here this one. Class is equal to, now let's say this last heading. So this heading is present in HTML file and this also present in CSS file. But whereas a pseudo class selector will not be there in HTML file. And that's we have to assume that. Now let's say this. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to write something here. See this now? I'm going to write, let me add the reference which I removed here. So I removed the reference, right? Let me put it back. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to put it back here. External style sheet reference. I put it back now. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add one more called P colon. So I'm going to change it hover. And I'm going to write color colon red. Now see this. So this one is a pseudo class because this will not be there in your HTML file. So when I hover onto this paragraph, all paragraphs, I will see this color as red. Now let's say this. I saved it. Let's go back to page 1 and let's go back to the browser and let's say this. When I move it, see now, when I move my mouse onto this, it's changing to red color. So this is this one you don't see anywhere here. So hover, you're not seeing anywhere here. So that's why it is called as pseudo class, right? Now let's say this. We have some more. So now normally when you see some articles in internet, right? When you see some articles in internet, the first page, first line of paragraph will be in bigger font, right? First character of a paragraph. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to write like this. So P colon first line or first letter. First letter will be in bigger font, right? So I'm going to put font size. I'm going to change it to large font. Okay, now let's say this. I'm going to see it in the browser. Let's see how it looks like. Right click on this, view in browser. Now see this. You might have seen like this in internet websites, right? So we are seeing the first letter in bigger font, right? So normally we see this paragraphs like this. So now we just learned about these are called as pseudo class elements. So now say this. So this is for a link, visited link, active link. This is for hover. This is for checkbox checked, and there's a first line. So if you want to change for the first letter, we used it. We saw this. If you want to change for the first line, you can do this. You can use this. So let's see this now. So I'm going back to the page. So now if I change it like here, first line. So I'm going to change it. Okay, now I'll change it to the color. So let's not change the size now. I'm going to change the color, colon brown. Now let's save it. Let's go back to the browser and let's see how it looks like. So page 1, view in browser. Now you can see the first line has changed. So all the paragraph, the first line in brown color, right? So why we are learning all this is, depending on your client's requirement, you have to format your HTML page. So you should be really good in CSS. So CSS is very powerful. Using CSS, you can design your web page the way you want. So a lot of things are there in CSS, and this webinar will give you a kickstart for learning for making these changes for a web page. Now let's see some more changes now. Now this is called grouping of selectors. Now let's take you have a button, and you want your button to have background color gray and color to be blue. And your paragraph, you want again background color to be gray and color to be blue. So you see that these two attributes are same. So instead of making it duplicate, what you can do is write like this with a comma separator. Okay, so now you can write at a single place, and this is called grouping of selectors. Okay, so this way you can write duplicate code, you can write it in a single place. In future, if you want to change it, just change it in one place. This will change for both of these controls, right? So this is called grouping of selectors. Now let's see the next one. So the next one we have is, so this is called adjacent selector. So you have a div tag. Div tag is one most commonly used tag in HTML, which is used like a section. So div tag followed by h1. So now all h1s immediately followed by div tag will have this color. Now let's say this. Let's try to understand what does it mean. Now I'm going to change it now. So let's take, I have a div tag here. And let me put this inside div tag. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, after this I have h2, and after this I have paragraph, and I have h2. Now what I'm going to do now is, I will put div plus h2. So div plus h2. Now let's see how many h2s will get changed, right? Now let's say this. I'm going to save it. Let's go back to the CSS file, and I'm going to put like this. So div plus H2, I'm going to put the color as brown. Let's say this, I saved it. Let's go back to page 1, and here is what I changed. Project details is immediately after div tag. So right click on this, view in browser. Now say this, I'm only seeing, if I see the style sheet, I'm only seeing project details in brown color because this is inside div tag. Immediately followed by that, I'm having this. Now imagine you want all H2s followed by div tag, you want in the same color. Now you have to go for, so this is called, now let's come back and see this. So this is used for adjacent selector, immediately adjacent to div tag. Now this is called subsequent sibling selectors. Now div tag followed by H1 tags. Div tag, after div tag, if you have any H1 tags, that will be converted to like this. Now let's say this, this is a tilde symbol. Now let's say this, I'm going back here and I'm going to change it to the tilde symbol now. Now let's see how, where it applies now. Let's go back and right click on this, view in browser. Now see this, it's applying for all. This one is turned to brown color, this also turned to brown color, but this is not turned to brown color because this is before the div tag and these two are after the div tag, right? So that's the difference between adjacent selector and subsequent sibling selector, right? All H1s followed by div tag will be in this. Immediate H1 followed by div tag will be in this color, right? Now let's see the next one. Next one, we have something called opacity. So opacity is nothing but, now let's take, you have an image on your HTML page, you have background image, which is really good image. Covers, there are some good images there, and you're seeing some text above that image. Now, if the text is more dominating, more giving more precedence over the image, you may not see the image properly. In that case, what you can do is you can make this font to look in a lighter color by using this opacity. So opacity is an attribute which will help you to reduce the color appearance. So now you can see this light color. So dark black changed to light. Now you can see that it is, we gave here 0.5. Now let's say this, let's see an example for this. I have some examples. So I'm going to open this now. Let's say this. So I'm going to show this opacity example. Right click on this, open with Google Chrome. Now here, let's see, now you may not see that much difference now, but now I'm going to open this in opacity example. I'm going to open this in Visual Studio. So let me drag and drop it. Okay, now say this, and I'll open this. Now imagine if the font is, Now what I can do now is, I'm going to change this opacity to 0.5. Now let's see the difference. So I changed it to 0.5 and let's see the difference now. Now you can see that the font has been reduced. You might have noticed that previously it was very, now if I change it to 0.2, it will be very, very light. See this? I'm going to save it and refresh it. You hardly can see it. See now? It's very light. And if you make it 0, you cannot see it. So opacity 0 is nothing but fully transparent. Now you will not see the font. So even though the font is there actually, so you're not able to see this. So now let's change it to 0.1. So opacity is normally used to make the font lighter. So the biggest, this range for this opacity is 0.1, 0.1 to 1.0. So you cannot give less than, if it is 0, everything is gone. So 1 is the maximum, which is equal to not giving it, right? So that's about opacity. Okay, now let's come back to this presentation and let's see what is there in store for us. Now we have font size. So this is most frequently used one. So different units for font size. So most of the times we'll be using pixels. So 96 pixels per inch. So or we have points. So font size we can even put in points. So 72 points per inch. And IN stands for inch, and mm is for millimeter unit, absolute millimeter, and cm for centimeters. Now let's try to understand what does it mean. Now imagine I'm going to page 1. And I'm going to change it to font. Now say this, I'm going to use font, I'm going to put some paragraph here, and I'm going to put style, font size colon, let me put here, I'm going to put this as, let's go back to this. I'm going to put 96 pixels, because per inch it's showing 96 pixels, so let's change it to 96 pixels. And let's see this. So I'm going to put here font size for this paragraph as 96px. Okay, this is how we indicate, we represent 96px, and I'm going to write here good one. Now I'm going to add one more paragraph. And this time I'm not giving in pixels. Let me give it in inches, 1 in. So I'm going to give here 1 in. Ideally, now we should see both in the same size because 1 inch is represented by 96 pixels. Now let's see whether we will see this both in the same. I'm going to add BR tag here. Let's see whether these two will be in the same size or not. So I'm going to right click on this, view in browser. So now let's see this. So are we seeing the same size? So we are seeing the same size because I have this whole red color. So now you can see that both are in the same size. So that clearly tells that 96 pixels is equal to 1 inch, right? So now let's come back. So if you want small heading or small paragraph, you can reduce it to 10 pixels or even 5 pixels. 5 pixels will be very small. So now let's see how it looks like in the browser. See here, you're not able to see this. It's actually here. This very small font. So I can zoom this. Now see this, you can see here. I zoomed it to 500%, you're seeing this. So now I'll reduce it to 100%. Okay, so like this, depending on your requirement, you can select appropriate units. So these are the most frequently used unit, and most widely used one is pixels. So pixels, points, inches, mm, and centimeters, right? So with this, let's go to the next slide. Now, this is very important. CSS follows box model. So now you can see here, CSS stands for Cascade Style Sheet. Now, this is your browser. Assume that this is your browser. Okay, assume that this is your browser. And when you give, let's see this. Now see here now. This is the browser. This is the browser. And now I'm going to give margin equal to 50. Okay, so we'll come back to here now. See this? This is margin. Okay, sorry, this one is the browser. So this is margin. This is border. And padding is the distance between text and the border. And this is the content. Now we will understand this if we see some example. Let's see this and try to understand. Now see this. This is the browser, and whatever you're seeing here, this gap is called margin. This gap is called margin, and you can see all sides we are seeing this. And now you can see this border 15. So this is the border. This is the border, and you can see padding is 100. So this is padding. Padding is the distance between the content and the text, a border. Now background color is yellow, and this is for paragraph, right? Now what I'm going to do now is let's do this now. I'm going back to I have this example. I'll just open and show you now. Let's see this. So let's go back to the example now. Now let me open this in Google Chrome. Let me open this in Visual Studio. Now let's go back to Visual Studio and drag and drop this. Okay, we have it. Now right click on this, view in browser. Let's see how it looks like in the browser, and I'll explain you. See this now, everyone. So you can see this, the border I have given 50. So this is the border. This is the border, and padding is, I repeat once again, padding is the distance between, padding is the distance between and the text. This is the padding, and then we have background color yellow. Now what I'll do now is, there is a small change here. So I'll explain this. 50. We gave two values. I'll explain this. Before that, let me change it to 200 only. I'll explain this. Let me save it to 200, and now let me refresh it. Now you can see this. Okay, maybe 200 is a little big, so I'll just put it 100. Now let me refresh it. Now see this, everyone. So now, ideally, it is 100, it is 100, it is 100, and this also should be 100. But what's happening in the right-hand side is it's going to the full page. So now if I reduce this, see now, I'm going to reduce it. Now it is getting reduced, but when it reaches 100, you will see a all bar. Immediately you will see that I'm still moving it. Now see this. Immediately you can see that the text is going down. That means that this reached 100 now. So this is called cell padding. Cell padding, you can see 100 in all the directions. 100, 100, 100, 100, right? Now the distance between, I repeat once again, the distance between browser and the paragraph tag, we call it as margin, and this is called border, and this is called padding. Now if I still try to reduce it, you will see a scroll bar. See this now? I'm still reducing it. It's not moving. So it's not coming below 100, right? So now this is called box model, CSS box model. Why we need to learn this CSS box model is that for CSS div tags layout, we use this extensively. So you should be very clear with this CSS box model. Now let's see the next one. Now previously when I opened this, you saw that there is here 2 values. Now, so when you have 2 values for padding, so one will be applied for top and one will be applied top and bottom, and this will be applied for left and right. See this now? I'm going to see it in the browser. See this now? So when you give like this 2 values for padding, so this 50 and 50, this first 50 will apply for top and the bottom distance, and this 200 applies for the left and the right, right? So now let's see what's there in store for the next slide. Now this one you can give like this also. See this? We gave padding like this. So okay, this is actually border, right? So now you can see you can give all the 4 values. This will take here top, right, bottom and left like this. Okay, try this with 4 values and see how you can see the difference. Now let's see what's there in store for us. Now additional to this, so these are the topics that I planned. Additional to this, I also wanted to give you a high-level overview on Bootstrap. So you might be hearing a lot of times what is Bootstrap, right? So Bootstrap is all about CSS. Now what I'll do now is I'll quickly give you a simple example. So I'm going to Google Chrome, and we can actually see a lot of themes in bootswatch.com. So this is a free themes for Bootstrap. See, Bootstrap is all about CSS, right? Bootstrap is all about CSS, HTML, and JavaScript. Now what I'll do now is, for giving an example, what I'm going to do now is, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see a lot of themes here. So this will help you to quickly develop websites. Bootstrap themes will help quickly develop websites. You don't have to start from the scratch. Now let's see this. I'm going to select one in this website, bootswatch.com. And now I'm going to take, let's say this, you want to create a navigation bar like this, or you want to create some buttons like this. What you can do is you can take it. Now let's say this, I'm going to copy this. You can see here when I move the mouse on this, I'm able to see some arrow marks here, right? I'm able to see greater than and less than symbol. So I can click on this and I can copy this code. So I'm going to copy this code. So now I'm going to copy this. Now what I'm going to do now is I need to paste it in. I'm going to add one more HTML page. Now this new text document, I'm going to put here bootstrap example.html. So let me remove this. Now I'm going to open this in Visual Studio as usual. So let me drag and drop onto Visual Studio. Now I'm going to paste this code. So ideally we should put this code inside the body section, right? So let me collapse it and put it inside the body section. So HTML, and this is head section, and also we'll have body section. And I'm going to put everything in the body section. So let me copy this, Control X, and paste it. Now I have this code. Now what I need now is I need to refer to the CSS. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to download the Bootstrap. Bootstrap is all about CSS file. Let's see this. I'm going to add something called relation link. Rel is equal to style sheet. I'm going to download that Bootstrap now. Type is equal to text/TSS, and I'm going to put head is equal to bootstrap.css. Now let's save this. Now I'll go back here. And I'll go back to the page now, bootswatch. Now I need the CSS. So where I can see this is here. This one, bootstrap.css. I'm going to click on this. Now I'm going to do this copy, save as. I'm going to save it in my desktop. CSS webinar. I'm going to save it this bootstrap.css. Let me save it. Done. Now see now how I can see this in the browser. So let me go back to this one and see this in the browser now. I added this Bootstrap also in the same folder. Right click on this, view in browser. Now see this, within less time we are able to see this. So what we got from this is it's not that difficult to develop websites using, see the benefit of Bootstrap is it's responsive. See this? When I reduce the font size or screen size, it's automatically menu got like this. When I maximize it, you are seeing menu like this. Okay, that's why this is called responsive UI. Responsive UI. So using Bootstrap, you can develop very good websites in less time. You can customize it. Now let's go back and I'm going to write some change. I'm going to make some change here. Now see this? I'm going to change it to brand Netcom, and I'm going to change it to whatever you need. So I'm going to change the first one to link here. I'm going to put here courses, and the second one I'm going to put here trainers. Now let's see this. I'm going to refresh it. See here now, it got changed to Netcom, courses, trainers. I can add some link and you can change it here, right? So you can very quickly use this Bootstrap and you can design your website in less time, and hundreds of free themes. This is open source. So you can even use it for your commercial purpose depending on the license in the website. So you can go through the terms that are present in this website and you can use it. See now? So let's take, for example, you want this one. So this normally we use it for testimonials, right? See this now, I'm going to copy this. So let me copy this, and it's as simple as this. I'm going to copy this, and the respective CSS class, CSS code will be there in the bootstrap.css file. Now I'm going to copy this, and let's go back to this one. Let's go back to your Visual Studio, and I'm listed below this. So where is this? So this one is till here. I'm going to add some couple of BR tags. Now let's see how this looks like in the browser. So right click on this, view in browser. Now see this? This is like a feedback, a testimonials page, right? So now one last time, what we're going to see now is, let's go back and see this again in the Bootstrap website. So now I'm going to show you one more thing called see this forms. So this one also you can this. So click on this, you can copy this, and you can paste it, and you can see this. So I'm going to copy this. And this might add a width to a bigger full width, but we can change it. So let's go back to Visual Studio, and I'm going to paste it. I'm going to remove this block code now. Let's see this now. I'm going to save it. Let's see in the browser. Now you're seeing this full screen, but when I reduce it, so you can actually reduce the width of it. So I'm going to change it to I'll change it to 200 pixels or 300 pixels. Okay, let's save it and see how it looks like in the browser. Okay, so let me save it. So like this, you can actually change it, and you can work on. So what we learned now is, so we just learned how you can quickly use the Bootstrap themes that are available in internet, and you can customize your website, develop a website very quickly. Okay. So I think it got changed only here. So anyway, so now let me quickly summarize what we learned in the last 1 hour, and I'm going to quickly summarize for 2 minutes. Let's see this very quickly. So we started with CSS. So to develop a website for controls, you should be good in HTML, and presentation CSS, and user interaction, you should be good in JavaScript. And then we started off with internal. First, we learned about inline styling. At a specific place, you want to change the format. Internal styling for a single page, and external styling for all the web pages of a single website. And then we learned types of selectors. So this is called element-based selector, this is called ID-based selector, and this is called class-based selector. And then we learned about universal selector that applies for all the elements in the page. And we learned about pseudo class, where you can change depending on your requirement first character of a paragraph, or like this on hovering you can change. So these are called pseudo classes. And then we learned about grouping of selectors, and adjacent selector and subsequent selector, and opacity, and font size, and box model. And then we learned about Bootstrap. So how you can use Bootstrap for your website and developing very quickly. So that's all what I planned for today. Hope this is useful, and now I will give it over to Tracy.
Thank you so much, Meg. That was very informative, and we do have a few questions before we wrap it up. First one is from Nilesh. He would like to know, what if the customer needs two different styles of the two tags? Can we have two style tags in the same page?
Yes, we can have, definitely. So that's a good point. So if you want, let's take, for example, this paragraph. If I want this one to be in, let's take in some style, I'll use inline styling. So style, I'm going to put color colon brown. Let's change the color to colon brown. And I can have one more style here. So like this style, I can put color colon orange. So we can have two different styling in the same page. We can have it using inline styling. Yeah. What is the next question?
Okay, Meg, the next question is from Stephen, who would like to know, why is there two colons?
Okay, that is just to differentiate it. So now the two colons are only for this one. Not every class will have two colons, only for this one. Let's say this. So let's go back. I got his question. So what he means is like this one, pseudo classes. Let's see this here. So just to differentiate it from, so they added this for first line, and for first letter only we have these two colons, and all these are like, see, these are all like actions, but this is for content. So they want to differentiate it. So this is not for content, but this is for content of the page, right? This is like on hovering. This is like on action, but this is for actual text is changing, right? So this is how this by design, it is like this.
And any more final thoughts before we end our webinar?
I'm good, Tracy.
Okay, we want to now launch tell you about our special promotion for the recommended courses for this webinar. You'll see up on your screen here, and if you would enroll yourself for any of the courses mentioned below, you can add 15% to your savings. And now we're going to launch a quick poll to find out how many people might be interested in taking some additional training with us. And if you look on your screen, you'll see that here comes our poll. And we've launched that now for you to please fill that out. That would be very helpful for us. So thank you so much for that. And in addition, we do have a lot more informative webinars coming up. So please go to netcomlearning.com/webinars to register. And I want to thank all of you for joining us today. And if you do come up with any additional questions, feel free to send them to webinar@netcomlearning.com at any time. We hope that you found today's webinar informative, and we look forward to seeing you back here with us soon. Feel free to tell your friends and colleagues about our webinars and other courses. Have a great day, everyone.